Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to call the July 21st, 2021 TARC meeting to order. Again, this is a virtual workshop, so we won't be taking any action on any of the items, and the items will be for informational purposes only. Oscar, did you want to say anything, or I'm going to just go around and have everyone introduce themselves?
No, just go ahead and make your rounds.
Okay, I'll start. Oscar, did you want to start? And then I'll go down the list.
Sure. Oscar Camelo, Miami-Dade TPO, TARC coordinator.
Juan?
Juan Crespi, member.
Debbie?
Debbie Swain, TARC member, vice chair.
Who's next? Naldo?
Naldo Gonzalez. I'm with Gannon Fleming. I'm the design project manager for the Mr. Mickey project.
Okay, Bernard?
Yeah, good afternoon. My name is Binod Basnet, and I am the project manager for Mr. Mickey project with Department of Transportation.
Okay, Anab?
Anab Hyacinth, TARC member.
Okay, Vilma?
Velma Croft with HNTV, consultant to DOT for the Estero 90 PD&E study.
Okay, and then there's a second Naldo, but I know you're not the same person.
It's Dennis. Dennis, you're on mute there. You should be on the lower thing. Yep.
Okay, now it's switched. Okay.
Yeah.
Dennis, could you introduce yourself? Yeah, we can't hear you.
Well, in the meantime, while I get that fixed, that's Dennis McLaughlin. He is the architect of record for the Mr. Mickey project. Hopefully he'll get us sorted out.
Okay, Aida?
Hi, Aida Curtis. I'm a landscape architect for the FDOT 8th Street PD&E project.
Okay, thank you. Bao?
Good afternoon, Bao Ying with Florida Department of Transportation, project manager for the Southwest 8th Street, 7th Street PD&E study.
Thank you. Next is Sean.
Sean, you may be on mute.
Okay. Yeah, I guess he's still on mute.
Okay, can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Yes, I'm Sean Elliott with Gannon Fleming, leading up the Hialeah Market Station design.
Okay. And last but not least, Steve. You're on mute, Steve.
I'm here.
Okay.
Present.
Good. And Steve is a TARC member.
Correct.
And I think I got everyone. So with that, we're going to start the first informational item, which is State Route 90 Southwest 8th and 7th Street pair, project development and environmental, the PD&E. So whoever is leading that off, go be my guest.
Good afternoon, this is Velma Croft. Thank you for allowing us to present our project. We have a very short presentation. Next slide. We'll be going over the description of the project, the alternatives that were evaluated during the study, and the project schedule. Next. The project extends along both Southwest 8th and Southwest 7th Street from 27th Avenue to Brickell. It includes the I-95 interchange. As most of you probably know, Southwest 8th and Southwest 7th Street work as one-way pairs, with Southwest 8th Street 3 lanes in the eastbound direction and Southwest 7th Street 3 lanes in the westbound direction. It's about 3 miles each along both 8th and 7th Street. Next. Both Southwest 8th Street and Brickell Avenue carry the state historic highway designation, which limits the expenditure of state funds for certain physical changes on or near Calle Ocho, requiring approval from the Department of State. Next. Next slide, please. So the purpose and need of the PD&E study, of course, is always most important is to improve safety. There's a lot of crashes along the corridor, predominant types of crashes being rear end, angle, and side swipes, which are typical of congested conditions. So improving capacity and safety, as well as improving access to Brickell and the central business districts, and improving multimodal connectivities are all part of the purpose and need of the project. Next slide. So we evaluated several alternatives along the corridor along 7th and 8th. We focused on the arterial alternatives before the I-95 for obvious reasons. Anything that happens on the arterial, of course, we have an impact on access to I-95. So we evaluated a no-build alternative, transportation systems management and operations, and 8 built alternatives. Alternatives 1, 2, 8, and 3 removed a travel lane for different purposes. So we looked at alternative 1, for example, is a two-way in which both 7th and 8th Street will be converted to two-way traffic with one center travel lane, one center turn lane, dual turn lane. Alternative 2 was also a two-way traffic on both 7th and 8th. However, the third travel lane was evaluated as a transit only lane. Alternative 2A, again, a two-way, but that third lane was repurposed for a buffer bike lane. Alternative 3, it was a two-lane, however, it's a one-way alternative, so maintains the existing one-way pairs. However, the third travel lane was being repurposed for a bicycle lane. Now, alternative 3A, 4, 5, and 6 were three-lane alternatives. Alternative 3A maintained 3 lanes of traffic. However, it included a bike lane because the one of the parking lanes was compared to a shared parking and travel lane. So you would have during peak hour a third travel lane. However, during non-peak hour, then it will be repurposed as or continue to be used as a parking lane. Alternative 4 is the existing configuration. So again, 3 lanes eastbound on Southwest 8th with 3 lanes westbound on 7th Street. Alternative 5 was what we call the reverse flow. So it maintained the 3 lanes of traffic. However, 8th Street would have been used for the westbound and 7th Street for the eastbound traffic. And alternative 6 was sort of a combination where along 8th Street, we will have the shared parking and travel lane. And on 7th Street, we would have 2 lanes with for the westbound traffic. So both of those would allow to have a bike lane, buffer bike lane. We had early on in the project, we established a project advisory group and held several meetings. A lot of the business owners were concerned with any removal of travel lanes or reduction in capacity, as a lot of them saw that their businesses not only depended in Little Havana, but also in customers outside of Little Havana. So they saw any reduction in capacity as impacting their the likelihood of their business. Residents were also as equally concerned because, of course, any reduction in capacity, they saw as the possibility of having more cut-through traffic and, for the residential streets. So based on engineering, environmental analysis, as well as the public involvement, alternative 4 was selected as the preferred alternative. Next slide. So alternative 4, of course, maintains the existing configuration with the 3 lanes eastbound for 8th Street and 3 lanes westbound on 7th Street. It does, however, includes improvements at I-95. So no impacts, of course, along 7 on 8th Street, as we'll be maintaining the existing configuration. Next slide. There's a lot of existing landscaping along the corridor, but with that, I'll let Ida expand on that.
Thank you, Vilma. So I think one of the advantages of the no-build alternative is that there is, the corridor is maintaining the 3-lane traffics, and so with that, the curbs are being maintained where they are, which allow the project to retain a lot of the existing canopy trees that are along the corridor. So while we have certainly more on 8th Street, we have approximately, I would say, between 25 and 30% canopy coverage along the street. 7th Street is more limiting because the sidewalk and the right-of-way is more limiting, but we do have some canopy there that at least we're able to preserve. And then when we get to the Brickell slide, to the interchange slide, we'll talk about that. Vilma?
Yeah, next slide. So once, as I mentioned, once we had a preferred alternative for the arterial, then we focus on the I-95 alternative. So again, we evaluated the no build and 8 built alternatives. The built alternatives, you'll see it's a combination of elements. For example, alternative B1, we looked at an elevated off-ramp as well as an elevated on-ramp. Alternative B2 looked at the on-ramp, only the on-ramp, and alternative B3 evaluated only the off-ramp. Alternatives B1 and B3 were determined non-viable due to the constraint and the geometry for the off-ramp. As you all know, that area is very, it's an urban area. It's not a lot of right-of-way, so there were geometric concerns with the off-ramp and the ability to provide enough side distance. Alternative B4 was a at-grade solution that converted 3rd Avenue to one-way, and that was to facilitate the access to the on-ramps at Southwest 8th Street. Alternative B5 also looked at, again, a combination of the at-grade off-ramp, the elevated on-ramp and an at-grade off-ramp at Southwest 8th Street. Alternative B6 looked at the at-grade off-ramp with, again, the conversion of 3rd Avenue to one-way. Both B5 and B6 were also determined non-viable, again, due to the geometry of that at-grade off-ramp. We were, with the existing I-95, being able to fit that off-ramp just between the existing I-95 piers. So it ended up, as evaluated, it was not an ideal geometry. So they were also considered non-viable. Alternative B7, it's an elevated on-ramp with the proposed closure of Southwest 4th Avenue. Next slide. So this is the preferred alternative for the project. As I mentioned, it includes that, that elevated on-ramp from westbound 7th Street to northbound I-95. It also includes the widening of the I-95 southbound off-ramp and closure of Southwest 4th Avenue at 7th Street. Southwest 4th Avenue is a City of Miami jurisdiction, so we did extensive coordination with the City of Miami, as well as Miami-Dade Department of Transportation and Public Works, and they have both provided a letter of support for the closure of 4th Avenue. This alternative also includes converting 4th Avenue and 3rd Avenue to two-way between 6th Street and 7th Street, and that's to facilitate, again, access to the I-95 on-ramps at 8th Street and 7th Street. Next slide. And with that, I'll pass it to.
Thank you, Vilma, again. As you know, as Vilma stated, with the limited right-of-way and the limited options, again, one of the wonderful benefits for the project is that there will be very, very minimal vegetation impact. And these interchanges at these ramps are very, very densely vegetated. So we will be able to maintain as much of the canopy as possible. The clearances may have to be maybe 1 or 2 trees, depending on what the clear zones, but that will be in the final engineering plans. Thank you.
Thank you. Next slide. And this is showing a rendering of the proposed on-ramp. Of course, we'll be providing sidewalks on both, well, there's existing sidewalk on the north side, and we'll be providing sidewalk as well on the south side. Next slide. In terms of the project schedule, we're looking to hold a public hearing. We're looking at November of this year. Of course, we'll also cover the State Historic Highway designation, as well as we'll be presenting the closure of Southwest 4th Avenue. We're looking, anticipate location design acceptance in May of next year, and design to begin in late December of 22. Next slide. That's my contact information, as well as Pauline, who's the DOT project manager. Any questions?
Oops, sorry. Do any of the committee members have questions?
Yeah, this is Debbie, I do. The project schedule you just gave, that's for the entire 7th Street, 8th Street and expressway ramps, or just the expressway ramps? Is there anything actually happening on 7th Street and 8th Street, I guess?
No, there's nothing happening on 7 and 8th Street. I believe the department has a resurfacing project later on, but not at this time. As part of the PD&E, that schedule is for the I-95 improvements.
Okay. So the whole PD&E process, including all the public hearings, have already taken place?
No, the public hearing is anticipated in November of this year.
But that's also for 7th Street and 8th Street, or just the ramps, I-95 ramps?
Well, the entire, that will be for the PD&E. So we'll be presenting, the alternative 4, which maintains the existing. So the improvements really are on the I-95, but the entire PD&E is from 27 to Berkeley.
Anything else, Debbie?
No, I was on the action committee for Safer People, Safer Streets, and that's just, I hadn't heard anything about what's been going on 8th Street. I guess I hadn't been keeping up, and I was real excited to hear what innovative solutions DOT was going to come up with for incorporating transit access and even possibly bus access, but I guess it didn't.
Right. I mean, I had the same thought when I reviewed this. What are we actually looking at? And then it took me kind of towards the end to determine it was just the interchange there.
Yeah. Right. After all that, nothing happened.
Right. So that's So I mean, again, since we're not really looking at the whole couple mile stretch there, the only question is on the road closure on 4th. Isn't there a Publix? Is that where the Publix is?
The public is actually on Third,
It's on
so
Third.
that's
Okay,
where
I'm sorry.
we'll be
Yeah,
converting. Right, and we will be converting Third to a two-way traffic,
That's
so
what it
that
was,
would
okay.
help with access to public.
Right, okay. But I'm sorry, yeah, so that's what's happening, closing Fourth, which allows access to the ramp to go to 95 if you go through the intersections. So that'll close. Okay,
Yeah, the reason for the closure is, of course, that intersection is level service F. There's a lot of safety concerns. So it improved the operations of the intersection tremendously by closing, that's I-90 is a 5-leg intersection. So improving that, the closing Fourth Avenue improved the level of service.
it's a mess. I can't say how anything improves that intersection or Third Avenue, it's very congested in that whole area. But, because whatever, if you want to go northbound, it always gets backed up on, the 7th Street, Third Avenue, and to 8th Street and, beyond. So, anyway. So, okay, do any of the committee members have any questions?
This is Arnav. I only hope that, going forward, would also touch 8th Street and 7th Street. They do need to be looked into.
Which they need help, yes, definitely, so. All right, if there are no other questions from the committee.
Dave,
I'm sorry.
this is Steve.
sorry.
I got a question.
Okay.
My question was on the added sidewalk where the highway ramp comes down. Is there clearance there? Is it a regular sidewalk, or what kind of this space was given there? Sometimes they put in the highways and they don't always think of pedestrians. So is that being thought of in this sense? I don't know if I saw that in the drawing.
Are you referring to the on the south side?
You said you added a sidewalk on one side, and on one side you said it was existing.
Right, and that's in front of Public, so that's 7th Street between 4th and 3rd Avenue. Might be good to go back to the previous line. I'm sorry, one more, one more. Yeah, so so right underneath the ramp, we'll have sidewalk on that side. No, you were on it's the next line.
Yeah. So is that Publix on the right there?
It looks that way.
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
The orange building, that's Publix.
Okay. And the new sidewalk is across the street.
Correct.
Okay.
That's a vacant property right now.
Right. So actually, Steve made me think about something. So, there's always been talk about making these roads two-way instead of just one-way pair. So this new ramp would almost preclude that from happening. Is that correct?
Well, we did look at all those build alternatives. As I mentioned before, we looked at the two-way, we looked at the reverse. A lot of it, the stakeholders, both business owners and residents, saw a lot of construction, to turn it into two-way pretty much require reconstruction. And at the end of the day, they didn't really see a benefit in terms of their business or the residents. So to convert it to two-way require, of course, new signalization and again, a lot of reconstruction for what was in their eyes not seeing as any additional benefit.
Right, it's good urbanism to do. Yeah. So anyway, all right. Any other questions or comments?
I have a quick question for Ada Curtis. How's the condition of those trees, for the canopy along that are existing and they're all gonna stay as Are they in good condition? Are there any?
Some are in good condition. Some could be replaced. Part of the compromise here is that there's a lot of root systems that have been compromised because, these are narrow streets and it was right where, before we had any of these new techniques and to create more space for the tree root growth. So the sidewalk, the roots are very tight and congested. In our opinion, it's best just the best thing is to leave them, because chances are that if we were taking one tree out, we would not be able to replace it in that quality and canopy and shade. So unless it's a hazard, we're not recommending removal. And we didn't find any hazard on the road, but we're not recommending any removal because I think they're quite, some of them are quite large and they provide a good canopy. While they may be compromised in the root system, but they're not a hazard. They're not a danger.
Okay, and nothing needs to be adjusted to the sidewalks to accommodate the trees. That's not going to be touched either.
I mean, it could be done, but I think that that's a more of the maintaining agency, if I'm not mistaken, which is the city of Miami as the maintaining agency, because at the moment there is no hazard
Right.
created.
Okay.
So,
okay, thank you.
Okay, anything else?
I just wanted to ask if you could hear me, if I got my mute fixed.
You're fine.
Oh, yeah.
Perfect. Thank you for that.
David, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. It's been difficult to absorb the project because on the one hand, I'm looking for an Southwest 8th Street improvement all the way from, Brickell to the Palmetto. So the title or something is extremely confusing. And then bottom line, we're looking at a ramp. So I feel either the title of the project should be changed or we should see the entire project. We're just giving a very narrow little scope to, this is what we're doing here. So I don't know, is there something in the project in its totality that we're not seeing, or it's coming to us later?
Isn't this just the one-way portion of 8th Street and 7th Street? That's in the study area?
Well, the study did look at alternatives along 7th and 8th between 27th and Brickell. However, after evaluating, as I mentioned before, there was 8 built alternatives. It was recommended to maintain the existing configuration. So the study did evaluate the corridor, the entire corridor. However, it's just the proposed improvements are at the I-95 interchange. When the project moves to the design phase, then it will just be a design project for the interchange. So at this time, there's no proposed improvements along the arterial.
And I think the reference to all the way to the Palmetto was with respect to what's designated historic. It's not that that's the entire study area. The study area is more limited to just 27th Avenue to Brickell.
Yeah, I think throwing the word historic and all this area just confuses what it is you're doing, And back to the 7th Street and 8th Street, is it a reluctance from the neighborhood to have any change there? Or is it that there is a way of improving what's there now?
Oh, it was again, it was an evaluation. We did look at the engineering. As I mentioned, the converting to two-way required reconstruction. Some of the other alternatives that provided a buffer bike lane, for example, also require reconstruction of the curb, which require redoing the drainage. So once it was all evaluated and it was maintaining the existing configuration was seen as the best alternative. So the study did look at the entire corridor, and that's why it's the PD&E study. We don't go back and change the limits just because the improvements happen to be concentrated at the interchange, because we did evaluate alternatives for the entire corridor. Once the project moves to design, then of course it will be, the limits will be focused on the interchange.
So back to my question. Is there, you know, your response was based on economics, but is there improvements at all to Southwest at 8th Street that could have happened? Or is it that the best you can do is what's there from a
The best that we can do it, the best that we, yes, the best that we can do is what's existing. As you know, it's a very urban corridor, very tight corridor. There's no right away. The businesses were very concerned that any reconstruction would impact their businesses. A lot of them, and this was before the pandemic, but even then, a lot of them were struggling to survive and maintain their business. So they were not, they were concerned with any reconstruction or any changes to 8th Street. And the residents, as I mentioned, they were concerned that any reduction in capacity would increase cut-through traffic. So based on a lot of public involvement and analysis, it was just determined that the existing configuration is the best for those roadways. The department did do a pedestrian safety project on both 7th and 8th Street recently that added a lot of the pedestrian crossings. So there was a lot of improvements for pedestrian safety about a couple of years ago.
Anything else? All right. Oh, I'm sorry. No,
Not me, sorry. Go ahead.
Juan, Anab, Steve, anyone?
All good.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much for your presentation. Again, no action will be taken today because this is just a workshop. So hopefully, if we don't go backwards, hopefully we're gonna have, we'll have regular meetings starting in September. That's the hope. So we'll see, what happens between now and then. So, all right, again, thank you. So we're gonna move on to informational item number 2, which is the Miami River, Miami Intermodal Center Capacity Improvement Design.
Yeah. Good afternoon again. My name, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. My name is Binod Basnet. I am a project manager with District 4. So, I mean, as you see, you are always involved with District 6 folks. So this will be the first time I think we, as District 4, are coming here to meet with you. We had a PD&E study done by SFRTA for this project, and there were a few commitments that were made. And as part of the commitment that we were going to do a presentation with you during the design. So, and that's why we are here to present this project to you. And we have our design team, project manager, Naldo Gonzalez, who's gonna do the presentation from here. Naldo?
Okay, thank you, Bino. In addition to myself, we have Dennis McLaughlin, who's the architect of record for the station. And we also have Tanya. Tanya, you on the call? She just joined us a little late.
Yes, I am. Thank
Can
you.
introduce yourself, please, real quick. Tanya?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Introduce yourself and your role on the job?
I'm Tanya Reineman with Gannett Plumbing.
Okay. And she's doing all the civil site. So I'll next couple slides, I'll give you a little background of the project, and then we'll get into the improvement. And then towards the end, we'll talk about some of the aesthetic features relevant to the project and relevant to this committee. So really it starts with a purpose and need. As Binod said, SFRTA did a PD study and looked at addressing a couple of really important items, important elements of the purpose and need. First of all, the South Florida Rail Corridor, which is where Tri-Rail runs along, is 72 miles. And this is the last mile and a quarter of the SFRC. And what it is this is a portion of the corridor that's down to a single track. There is a bascule bridge that limits the track to being a single track. And therefore, it's the last segment that hasn't been widened or any capacity improvements on. So this is a final leg of these capacity improvements and to improve the system linkage for Tri-Rail to go all the way from Palm Beach County down to Miami. The second purpose is to meet the demands for freight and commuter rail. As you know, Tri-Rail runs on approximately 50 trains a day. Amtrak is out there as well on the corridor, and CSX. These numbers may have changed, obviously, with COVID, but still, when things get back to normal, we expect those numbers to be what's shown there, if not higher. And then the third item is to improve travel time for Tri-Rail and the schedule adherence for CSX. Next slide. Nope, other way. You can see the map there. Okay. And then the last part is the intermodal connectivity. This is at the Miami station, which is the far south end of the job, which is the Miami Airport station of Tri-Rail, and it really provides connection of Tri-Rail, Miami-Dade transit for the buses, the Metro Rail, the Greyhound. Eventually, Amtrak will be going down to the Miami station, and of course, it provides connections to Miami International Airport. Next slide. The existing corridor is a single track. You see it here, and it goes from just north of the Miami station, which is around Northwest 28th Street, to just north of Northwest 46th Street, which is in the area of Hialeah. The right-of-way is about 50 to 60 feet, 60 to 80 feet, I'm sorry. And then the land use area is predominantly industrial. Have you ever been out there? There are several crossings along the project limits. There's 2 spurs, the downtown and the Homestead, which is mainly for CSX. And then there's 2 sidings that are historic that provides direct access rail connections to 2 properties along the corridor. Next slide. These are some other existing conditions that we're contending with. The existing Hialeah Market Station, which will be improving, but that's just south of the Hialeah Seaboard Airline Railroad Station. That was the original station, was just north of the existing station, and it's historic. So we won't be touching it, but you should be aware of that constraint. The other one is the river crossing. It's a single bascule bridge, which I'll speak to. It's eligible for listing on the National Register of Historic Places. It's very limited to openings. There's no boat traffic out there, but they do open it for maintenance. And then we have a couple overhead structures, including Northwest 36th Street and the State Road 112, which is the Airport Expressway, and then the Metro Rail, which is the McErrington Heights, the last leg that was constructed a few years ago. Next slide. The main issues on the job, when we looked at it from a design and we kind of took over the project from PD&E, is in three buckets. The first one is the biggest hurdle we had on the job, which is navigational rights. That portion of the Miami River is dedicated for navigation through a federal project canal. And in order to get over and have a fixed bridge, we needed to get a deauthorization. And that required literally an act of Congress, which we were successful back in December. And working with SFRTA and FTOT, we were able to get the US Congress to pass a bill that included the deauthorization of that portion of the canal, which allowed us to go with a fixed bridge. It requires some coordination with some permitting agencies, and we do need to compensate the property owners for repairing rights. The second bucket of items we deal with is capacity improvements, the replacement of the bridge. How do we do that? How do we maintain traffic? The special track work, the signals are being upgraded. The PTC, which is a positive train control, safety features, we're improving it. And then the maintenance, how do we maintain traffic for CSX, Tri-Rail while we're building this thing? And of course, safety and security is important on the job as well, which will be, it's part of our scope. Next slide. This is a quick overview of the project. You see, starting from the south, that's the Miami Station. The project, the rail work starts around Northwest 28th Street. We're still keeping the old Northwest 28th Street crossing because MDX has a property there. We do have the spurs, number 4 and 5 are the connections to the spurs used by CSX. I want to point out number 8, that's a South Florida Water Management District control structure. That was a limit of the navigational rights for the canal that's now deauthorized. But it's important you know that. The crossings of State Road 112, You see also the station where it's at, and that included a picture of the old historic Hialeah Seaboard Airline Railway Station, which is an historic building, is used for a flea market. It hasn't been used very often, but we're not touching it, preserving it, and we're protecting it with our project. Next slide. Like Minot said, there was a PD study done by SFRTA between 2013 and 2018. They included a Section 4F evaluation, Section 106, especially for the historic features, and it ended up being a finding of no significant impact. They gave recommendations for alternatives for the tracks, the bridge, and the station, and then it also included some preliminary design work. Next slide, please. These are the recommendations from the PD&E, which eventually comes into our design. Obviously, a 2-track system. Next slide. The replacement of the existing bascule bridge, a movable bridge with a fixed bridge. You can see it's just to the west, and I'll explain the reason for that. It's just to the west of the existing bridge, and that's a picture of what the new one's going to look like. It's a fixed steel bridge, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes. That's the preferred alternative. Next slide. The station, which we'll talk about, is a center platform station. The existing station is a side platform on the west side of the existing single track. The new improvements with a double tracking will have a center platform. This was a recommendation we evaluated, and this is a recommendation from SFRTA's executive committee. This is a station probably has the least ridership, and this is what they recommended and they approved at their executive level. Next station, next slide. This improvements, again, the crossings are going to be all upgraded with the different concrete ties, asphalt. We'll be improving the profiles along the crossings for the roadways. The signal pictures on the left are the existing signals. We are having these railroad signals that we're improving, and the crossings will be upgraded with new gates. Next slide. As Beno said, this is again, the PD&E had a commitment to meet and coordinate and get approval from TARC. As well as other PD&E commitments that we need to adhere to as part of our design, and we're tracking. Next slide. This is just a brief scope of our services from the railroad roadway design, drainage, there's quite a bit of drainage in the project, environmental permitting, quite a bit of agencies we're dealing with. The structure, steel, there's at the station, we have civil site work, which Dennis and Tanya will talk about. Railroad signals is also included. Safety and security is a big part of the project, which we are working on. Gannett Fleming is actually leading that effort. And then there's optional services. There is no landscaping currently in the scope, but we do have as optional services, as well as some of the others you see there as well. Next slide. Again, just a double tracking. We're fixing the crossings, the stations, all the work, mainline track. There's ballast. There's quite a bit of drainage work on the sides where we have swales along the side of the track. And then I'll just go next slide. So now we're in design. Next slide, please. So this is the design of the project. We started the project back in 2019, and we developed several typical sections that have been approved by FTOT, as well as CSX and SFRTA. This is the main typical section for the corridor, a 2-track system with sidewalking. The level area is for maintenance, a side area for maintaining the tracks is required by SFRTA. And so this is the majority of the corridor will be a double track like you see here. Next slide. This just shows another typical section with the siding. You know, obviously it's there. We needed this. There are only 2 locations. I'll show you those in a few minutes. Next slide. So this is the typical section at the bridge. There are 2 bridges, 2 twin bridges, one for each track. And the reason for that is on the left-hand side, that's the west bridge that will be constructed first. So we can build that bridge separate of the existing, maintain traffic on the existing. And then when that's completed, we can switch traffic over to the west bridge, demolish the existing bascule bridge, and then construct the east bridge. Next slide. This is a typical section from a rail perspective of the station in the middle. This is not what it's going to look like. Dennis will cover that. Next slide. And this is really a tie-in point, whether we tie into a double track or a 4-track system. This is one more typical section. Next slide. Okay. So the existing bridge was built in 1926. It's called a single leaf Schwerter rolling lift, really historic. It's about 196 feet in total length. It spans majority of the navigational channel, 55 feet. It's in very poor condition structurally, or it's in fair condition structurally. Let me not say that, but it is in poor condition mechanically. It takes quite an effort to open the bridge, which is only done for maintenance purposes. There's no vessels in the area for the most part. So we're looking to replace it. Next slide, please. But the bridge is listed, this is to be eligible to be listed on the National Register of Historic Places. And as such, during the PDD, FTOT or SFRTA coordinated with SHPO, the State Historic Preservation Office, and between FTA, who is a leading federal agency, SFRTA, and FTOT, they came with a MOA, which includes several stipulations, among them the documentation of the historic bridge, as well as the markers and recognition somewhere on the site or within the corridor, most likely within the station is what we're looking to do. So we have some context and history of the project, but these are stipulations that's in the MOA that's been signed. Next slide. So this is the proposed bridge. I'll kind of run this real quick. This the two single bridges parallel. You're gonna have, we have their precast. They're actually gonna be cast in place. Pier caps, you have 48-inch drill shaft, but the caps are rounded for a couple of reasons, especially the ones in the water. One, for any vessel impact, but also from an aesthetic perspective, it's rounded corners, which you see there for the intermediate bed. The superstructure is what's called steel through girders. They're simple spans. It's a three-span, it's a two-span structure, as you see there. The web are about approximately 10 feet wide, but it works out well because it hides away the tracks and the decks that it sits on top of the structure. Next slide. So with here, this slide, what I just want to show, I'm not going to go through all the items on the left-hand side, but on the right-hand side, you can see in the cyan color, purple color, that's kind of the foundation of the existing bridge foundations in the canal existing today. You can see that our design is much cleaner, it's perpendicular to the tracks. We only have a set for each bridge. We have a set of intermediate bends in the canal. So it's a much more efficient, clean design in the water and for the superstructure. Next slide. This little details of the pier cap. You see its rounded edges, which makes it look a lot nice and also helps out with if there were any vessels to come anywhere near the bridge, which is a low-level bridge. It's about 2 feet above the mean high water, but it's going to be really 6 feet above the average water. So the clearance between the average water level in the canal and the bottom of that structure is about 6 feet, which is more or less existing what's there now. Next slide. And this is kind of a view of it. You can see there, that's kind of a rendering of how the bridge is going to look like. The bridge is shown to be a level 1 aesthetics, but I want to make sure, and I'm not going to go through each of the level aesthetics, but we're doing a lot of elements of the level 2. The rounded pier caps, the steel through bridge covers a lot of the area. So a lot of the elements of the bridge really covered the level 2 aesthetics of the project, of the bridge. So or at least for FTOT's guidelines. Again, these guidelines are more for FTOT roadway bridges, but you can see we're applying a lot of the elements of level 2 to the bridge. Next slide. And this is what the final product looks like. We're working with the maintaining agency, that being SFRTA, as far as the color, but these are steel through girders. You see there on the left, it's more of a weathered steel look. And then the other ones are the different colors, whether it be the green color or the light purple blue, which SFRTA is kind of say they like the powder blue is one color they're considering. But more or less, that's what's going to look like from the side and from top. The center picture you see there, what's in yellow, that's a bascule bridge, but right to the left of that center picture, that's the fixed portion. That's what it's going to look like from top at the end of the day. Next slide, please. So with that, I'll hand it off to, I think, Tanya or with Dennis to cover the station.
Hi, this is Tanya Reineman from Gannett Fleming. I'm the civil site engineer for this portion of the project. This is the Hialeah Market Station. On the left side of the top picture, you can see the historic building that is remaining in place. To the right is the portion of the project that we're improving. So the existing station or the existing platform right now serves the bus and the track from the existing platform. We're going to be removing from the back of the curb the whole way across to the right of the picture to improve the site. So we'll be removing all the site amenities, which include 5 canopies. There's ticket and vending machines. There's existing electrical and communication lines under the site. There's existing bike racks, storage units, and benches that we'll be removing as part of this project. And below in the center platform plan view, you can see the improved site. This has, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to also highlight that we're going to, reconfiguring the site as shown below. And that during this process, we will be closing the station building, or not the station building, but the station temporarily to reconstruct and add track 1, track 2 in the center platform. The center platform is 400 feet long. It will be a precast concrete platform with a 17-foot wide canopy and a standing seam metal roof. As you can see there, the center platform is highlighted in the light blue color. Track 1 and track 2 run parallel to the center platform. The proposed bus platform will be reconstructed and is highlighted in a light yellow and is a sawtooth configuration. The mini highs are to the south side of the platform, or the south half of the platform, and they will allow ADA access onto track 1 and track 2. The pedestrian pathway to the south of the center platform will be the main access to the platform. The emergency egress will be to the north side, which is the much longer route, and will provide emergency. And there'll be pedestrian signals that prevent people from crossing when there is a train coming. The signals will have a gate which will come down, and there will be lighted bollards along the access to the center platform, and also along the entire bus platform and the egresses to and from the platform. There will be lighted bollards, as you can see, that are called out on the plan. The vending and ticketing machines. The vending machines will stay on the bus platform. The ticketing machines are going to be on the center platform. And you can see the bicycle storage units we're proposing and the bicycle racks. And then the actual vending machines will be between the bicycle racks and the bicycle storage units. So the next slide, Dennis McLaughlin of Gannett Fleming will cover for you. Thank you.
All right, finally back. If you could back up to this previous slide, I just wanted to note, thank you, the construction of the platform. I'm waving my arrow around like you can see it. The actual canopy, early in design, we were guided to follow the design of the Pompano Beach canopy station design. So what you're looking at with the center, there you go. The columns configuration is slightly different, and the roof system is now a standing seam roof system to keep consistency between the different stations. What we've considered, and you're seeing this, the roof system in more of a red like the tile, is something that we're recommending because it would put a draw between the historic structure on the left and the new platform to still draw them together, yet still have consistency with details and ease of design and flow, as well as recognition for folks looking at the stations. You know, it pops out pretty readily from afar that you're looking at a train station because the design is similar in shape and function. However, the colors we can blend in with the local areas for our recommendation. Next slide, please. So on the upper left, we're looking at an elevation view of the entire platform, which shows the main means of egress on the south end, which would be to the left side of your screen. And then the emergency means, which would be utilized on the right side if and when needed. What you can see also from afar is we're using the FDOT and SFRTA standards for the bench amenities, for waste receptacles, and signage as well. The signage does not appear on here. Down below on the right-hand side is the Pompano beach station, so you get a better look at what that would be like constructed as far as the main structures are concerned, with the standing seam edge gutters that then turn and drain internally. The downspouts come down by the main columns and then drain underneath the platform. Also highlighted there is mini high, providing ADA access, which we've put both of those, as Tanya had mentioned, towards the south side more because that's where the majority of the ridership is going to be coming and departing to. Next slide, please. This is just details of the standard mini high platform and what that would look like. Next slide. And this is a typical cross section showing the precast platform, precast foundations, and the structure for the platform with the standing seam metal roof, ridge vents, gutters, and the screens on rain screens on either side to help add a little bit more protection for the folks on the platform, as well as the drainage here. The benefit of the precast is that we can construct this more quickly and try to decrease any downtime that's required. Next slide, please. Here again is more samples from the Pompano, which gives you a much clearer picture of what the anticipated end result for the canopy would be, as well as mini high. Next slide. And as far as amenities are concerned, we're planning to use the standards for FDOT for the benches, upper left. We're reusing the ticket vending machines, which are currently on the bus portion of the station. So they'll be moved onto the platform. And they will also be enclosed in a smaller security type structure with a roll-up door for when the platform's open, they can roll the door up, and when not in use, they can close it and secure it, keep everything safe in there. The waste receptacle to the right is standard FDOT, and what we're recommending in our design is to use a two-can system so that we can add waste and recycling at each station there, at each location for these receptacles. And then continuing clockwise is a sample of the bus storage. It's going to be off onto the bus side of the tracks, and standard railing, which will be used on the platform coming to and from for the ingress and egress of passengers. Next slide. Here we have standard FSRTA signage that will be utilized on the site as well. Next slide. Last but not least, bollards that we have will be along the, are being used for lighting, and they will be utilized between segments of railing on both the bus side, where there'll be chain link fence separating the tracks from the bus portion of it, and also on the railings to and from the platform. The lighting that you're looking at on the right is what's being specified for the underside of the platforms. Next slide.
Okay, thank you, Dennis. Just to wrap it up, we will continue to coordinate with all the stakeholders, including the TPO and TARC. You see we have several of them to coordinate with. We have to adhere to SFOMA and the MOAs, but and also working with SFRTA and CSX also is important in the corridor. Next slide. Just last thing to cover is the project schedule. So we see we are more or less at constructability, which is 60% design. We started back in July of 2019. Right now, the biggest duration is both right-of-way acquisition and permitting. That will take quite a bit of time. And then we get until 90% or biddability, which is September 2023. And right around that time is when we'll also have a public meeting. Production, which is design complete, is in February 2024. And the letting of the project is currently scheduled for fiscal year 2025. Next slide. I think that's the last one. Yes, so we're happy to answer any questions. I didn't include any contact information, Alex and Oscar, but we'll be more than happy to send that if needed.
Okay, thank you for your presentation. So I'm going to turn it over to the other committee members for their questions, but you're letting this project in 2025. So when would it be finally constructed and open?
If the lettings in 2025, we're estimating probably 30 months. So open would be 2027, 2028.
Okay, thank you. Do any one of the committee members want to start?
Yeah, I'll start off, Alex.
Okay.
I think for clear flow of comments, you really have two projects here, and I think we should address it particularly that way. You have the rail portion, let's say, and the bridge crossing. That's, we should have one set of comments and go through everybody on that. And then we have a second project, which is the improvements to the existing station.
Yep.
What is your preference? Where would you like to start?
I mean, that's fine. I mean, they are, in my mind, two separate projects. So yeah, go right ahead. Start with the actual bridge project.
Okay. The bridge project has been around for a while, studies here and there. The bridge has been obviously designated historical. It has been retrofitted. There's been studies where the bridge stayed and a new bridge for the other direction would be added. I'm skeptical that the historical preservation boards are going to allow that bridge to be demolished and just disappear. So are there any alternatives for that bridge to be used as pedestrian, be relocated elsewhere? It's very hard to accept that history is going to be just going to disappear. That's a question for you, Naldo.
Yeah, and I'll try to answer, Juan, that question as best as I can. A lot of that was done during the PD&E. I wasn't involved with the discussions and the negotiations with SHPO. By the time we received it, that's all been packaged. As a matter of fact, the MOA was already done by the time we received it. My understanding from my research of the project before design, even now, and I would like to have had someone from Kimley Horn, who's part of our team, who was, I didn't get to invite him at this time, but there's a few folks who can maybe could have added context to that. But our understanding is that it was offered to several agents, several different offices, including Miami-Dade County, to see if they wanted any parts of that bridge relocated or moved somewhere. And my understanding, Juan, is we had no takers. So right now, as of now, there is no plan. I agree with you. It's historic in the fact that it's eligible for listing on the National Historic Registration of Historic Places. But my understanding from the gentleman who did the PD&E is they offered it to several different organizations and there were no takers. That's the best information or feedback I can tell you. I agree with you, but right now there's no takers, and that's what's in the agreement at this point.
And the opposition from the historic preservation, or has it gotten to them? Because I don't see them in your in your share stakeholders.
They've already signed off.
What I want to prevent, sorry?
They signed off. They signed the MOA. One of my slides in the presentation was the MOA is part of the commitment we need to do. And there's a couple stipulations we need to do. Number one is we need to have a documentation of the bridge. And I'm going through that now with the Henry Kenny Tunnel project with District 4. And they have to do pictures, history of the project. They have to do a whole book on it. And that's required on this one too. And the second thing is do some type of monumentation, education. It could be at the station. That's something to be determined during the course of our design. Those are the main stipulations. And the first one really is that there cannot be any changes done to what's came out of the PD&E without going back to SHPO. There's some significant changes on the project, such as if they want to go ahead and replace the bridges from the fixed, which is the approved and recommended, to other bascule bridge, then that we probably have to go back to SHPO. But I know they looked at different options for keeping the bridge and the risk involved, the way, the condition it's in, the maintenance required of it, at least from the PD&E perspective, was not viable or was not recommended.
Okay, now my concern is really historians acting in a late manner. So when it comes time for demolition, they might show up, you know. And I've seen it in other buildings. You know?
I agree.
So no, I guess you covered your bases. So there's nothing else I can say to that. There are no pedestrians near that bridge. So strictly a functional, you know, for a driver to cross. So there's nothing much you can do on. It's a quick at a speed type of circulation. So there's not much we can ask there. I saw some piers inside the river in one of the renderings.
Yes, we have a set of piers in the river.
You couldn't do a clear span?
Excuse me?
You couldn't span the river without having to
No,
do
it's over 120 feet. It would be, I mean, you look at different options. We couldn't span it the whole clear. I think it's over 100, 200 feet. It would be, the depth, the structure depth becomes bigger. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the area. We do have on either side, we have North River Drive and South River Drive. So we really are limited to how much we can increase the elevation or raise the elevation of the bridge because of those two constraint points on either side of the river. So what came out of the PD&E was a 3-span structure. They had two sets of piers inside the water. We're limiting it to 1. So we actually made it a larger, or we reduced the spans than what was proposed in the PD&E. So our design is much cleaner, less piers in the water, and we're getting approval. We're actually going through that approval process with South Florida Water Management District and the Army Corps of Engineers. But I mean, you can
I realize that there's a control gate there that puts everything, you know, but waterways are limited, you know. It might not be for boats, but it might be for canoes, you know. I don't want to kind of limit future possibilities of using waterways because there are no more. It's what it is. You know, we gradually built on them. So now I'm gonna ask any other members of the committee that want to talk on your portion of the work, and then we'll go back to talking about the building.
Right. So anyone else want to talk about the bridge?
Yeah. Oh, Debbie here. I just have a quick question on just kind of going off what Juan was just saying. That existing structure, the Water Management District structure, is there? Can canoes get past that? Can anything go past that, or is that the end of the complete end of the access?
Nothing can go past it. It's actually a salinity barrier structure.
Okay.
Nothing can go beyond there. And as a matter of fact, that's kind of it helped us to deauthorize the navigational channel. It was kind of part of the reason why, because
Came to an end anyway. Right.
and then we actually, Gannett Fleming actually, in preparing for meeting with the Coast Guard, we had just completed a vessel navigation survey, which requires 2 or 3 days observation, 24 hours. And we were out there and there was one motorized boat in the area, and there was no canoes. We went the weekend and weekday, and there's just not much boat traffic out there.
And the only other thing I have is that it's certainly not, the bridge is certainly not as pretty as what's there right now, but
Yeah.
that's all I got.
Nab, anything from you on
No,
the
no
bridge?
question on the bridge.
I'm sorry.
No question on the bridge.
Okay. Steve?
I'm good.
Okay.
All good.
right. Thank you. I share the same concern about the bridge. In fact, some of you may remember who were on the committee a number of years ago. Remember, there's a park around 22nd Avenue during the 836 project. Wasn't that when they moved a similar bridge to a park? Was it the Boys and Girls Club or some park or something? Do any of you remember that?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I'm very familiar with that. They took that old bridge off of the Miami River, had a corridor that went south, and they moved it over there.
To the
And
park.
it had that kind of designation of it being an old bridge that they saved.
Right. That's what I'm getting at. And I would have liked to have seen the same thing happening with this bridge, because plaques don't cut it, when you have a structure, if it's historic. So I think it may be an issue later on. You say you have all the okays, but I just think it may be an issue. So
This is a very big bridge, David.
right.
Yeah.
Much bigger, much bigger.
Alec, so yeah, I mean, my understanding is there was part of the SHPO coordination is to try to find some place to relocate it to. And I know the P&E team looked at spoke to different folks to try to see where they can relocate it, and we could not get anyone to take it. That's my understanding. I can revisit and get back to this.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think
I agree with you. It's unfortunate because it's really unusual bridge for a basketball bridge. It's like I mentioned, it's built in 1926. It's a single rolling lift. It's from one side, but my understanding there's no takers of the bridge back then. Maybe things are changed now, but at the time of the coordination with SHPO, I'm sure they would have pushed that as well.
right. So it's basically the new twin bridges are the same height above the water level that the basketball bridge is.
Correct, more or less.
Okay, because I'm looking at the one aerial with a picture of the bridge. It says recommendations and it has alternative 3. It looks like there are a bunch of boats to the northeast of the new structure, and they look like they're kind of big.
Yeah, that's an old picture. That
So
property,
that's what
yeah.
I'm not understanding,
Yeah, it's okay. I should have changed that picture. That property was acquired by FDOT about a year ago, Bino, more or less, 2 years ago. So those boats are no longer there. It's an old aerial
Okay,
picture.
so that takes care of that issue. Okay, so if no one else has any comments or questions about the bridge, let's go, I guess, to the next topic, which is the station. Juan, that's what you're saying.
Yeah, that's what I was suggesting, yeah. The station, historical kind of building. So I have difficulties accepting that next to a historical building, we're doing a particular design of a station because it was done in Pompano,
Right.
I wonder if in Pompano they were going to do another building that would do the historical one, you know, that's not a good approach. When you have a historical building, there's really two ways to go about it. You know, one is you sort of follow the year, the nature of the other building in your expansion, and it's a perfect blending. And the other one is you accept, like, hell, I cannot do that, and try to do something that's, you know, at least compatible.
More Hialeah, that's what I'm saying. So,
Right.
you know, the barrel tile roof.
It has a character. I'm not a following or you know, or the Hialeah or the barrel tile. I'm tired of a barrel tile, you know, to be honest. But it's like something just landed there. There, you know, if you go as far as the MIC, when you get to the MIC, it's another vocabulary, and it's all somewhat metal modernistic, you know. So we're kind of caught in the middle here. I have problem visualizing a metal station next to that building, and
right. No, yeah. No, I understand, and I, you know, I appreciate that at least you're using a rust-colored metal seam, because when I saw the Pompano one, I'm like, no, you know, the blue. So,
and I'm all for the like no, I would say like the Fort Lauderdale or the Cypress Creek stations are great, but they're metal stations, and the whole thing is done that way, and it works great. I'm fond of the Fort Lauderdale one, but that's there where we're here, you know. Right. Did Hialeah have an input in the metal structure? Because Hialeah is very pushy for the architecture they have there.
That's what I was getting at. That I totally agree with you. You know,
that's a question to you now. You know, is this Hialeah?
It is Hialeah. It's a Hialeah market station. So we started we haven't coordinated with Hialeah yet at this point. You know, we've coordinated. I mean, SFRTA has, you know, certain guidelines they want to abide by, but obviously part of the requirements, the stakeholder coordination is with the City of Hialeah.
Like I said, I'm not fond of the style, but I think when the vernacular architecture is important, and I think you owe it to the city to meet with them there and say, okay, this is what's happening here. Give them your sales pitch on why you're going metal, and see where it goes. I don't know if there's a blend, but there's a lot you can do between one extreme and the other. But I think my recommendation is, you know, go to a City Hialeah and get a buy-in in there. And again, I can't go down saying that I recommend that you do, you know, a barrel tile, etc., because I won't say that, you know. I think you just, but you got to admit that there's a different style there, and, you know, should blend in. Just like I will not say, and you can't say that I say, you know, I'm recommending that you demolish the historical bridge. I can't say that, you know. You know, if you can't use it, try to relocate it somewhere and find another use. But that's my comments.
all right, thank you. And I wholeheartedly concur with what Juan said, so I really don't have to add anything else, but I definitely talk to the City of Hialeah and get their buy-in.
I just want to add, I also agree wholeheartedly.
Okay. Steve and Ab?
We're all in
Yeah,
agreement.
you know, I'd like to, I agree with everything that was said. And can we step back? You said that FDOT bought, I'm sorry, we tried to divide these two, and I'm going to take us back a little bit. to where the bridge was. And you said you bought the property just north of that, the FDOT did, right? So that, in a way, when the bridge is taken out and you put in the new bridge, it's really going to have this really clear, open, I mean, it's a desolate area right now, but it could be so much nicer. Is there any discussion about it becoming a park or something that, in the future is, if you come up the river, it ends right there. And I'm sure the people in Miami Springs don't consider the river ending right there. And they have a park actually on that river, just to the west or, up the river. So it seems like it's being cannibalized and not thought about, but yet it is a very nice big piece of property there. So I think there's a missing point there. And I'm on the same thing as to what Juan was talking about in trying to, coordinate the look of things. It helps to look at things from afar sometimes, and sometimes it's just design. It's not even more money, and we come out with so much more. So I hope that this is what this committee brings to a lot of the projects, and that's all I got to say today. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, with that, thank you very much for your presentation, and I think you heard the committee. So if you could do anything to help us with the bridge, that would be great. Okay, so moving on. The next, we will not be having a meeting in August. So our next scheduled workshop, unless we go back to regular meetings, the next workshop will be September 15th. Anything else? Anyone want to say anything else?
No.
Okay, Oscar, you need to say anything?
No, I'm good. I'm glad you mentioned that, because we are in August, in recess in August rather. So are all the advisory committees and the TPO board. I mean, regular work will continue, but that whole month is designated advisory committee like break for everyone. And we don't know if we'll be coming back in person in September now with this new Delta variant. It's throwing a whole curveball into everything. So I'll keep everyone posted if and when we do go back into the office.
Okay. All righty. Well, thank you for that. And everyone have a happy August. And I'm happy I can get out of here on time and get to Homestead.
And not miss anything. Exactly.
And not miss anything. All right. Thank you, everyone.
All right, everybody have a great summer. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Take care.
Thank you. You too.